Okay, no intro, no wasting time on this. You guys have waited long enough. This is the video on the vertical notch. Simply Sinful, aka Sin, is the one that developed this maneuver about a year ago. All credit to this goes to him. I learned it from him by playing against him. There's a link to his channel down below. Please give him a watch, check it out, subscribe, whatever. We're going to crack right into it. So usually a traditional notch consists of two axes. You have your x-axis, which in this case is going to be your direction of travel. We are going to be represented by the blue line on the left. Your y-axis is 90 degrees to your left and 90 degrees to your right. This is usually considered your notch angle. The red line is going to be an enemy, and we're going to be going towards a head-on engagement. In this case, if the enemy launches a missile on me, I want to notch it. If I want to notch it, I'm going to go 90 degrees left into my notch angle. When I go 90 degrees left, I'm going to be dropping chaff periodically in order to spoof the missile's seeker head. If I've done this correctly and I've successfully defeated the missile, I can do one of two things. I can either turn back into the enemy and recommit back to the head-on, or I can decommit and go to my left and go cold, loop back around, and then recommit, which is a little safer, but still takes a lot of time and allows your enemy to close in on you, further closing the distance. Now, when people think in this traditional notch idea, they usually think in this two-dimensional space, your y-axis and your x-axis. But this is a video game which resides in a three-dimensional space. And there's a whole other axis that you can utilize, which is your z-axis. This is where the vertical of the vertical notch comes into play. Now, I'm going to plop down a loop which is going to resemble the vertical notch loop. Now, when you look at it from a bird's eye view in this two-dimensional space, you can see that it still resides within that notch angle of the y-axis. So in theory, while you're conducting this maneuver, you're still within that notch angle at all times. Now, let's stop looking at it from a bird's eye view. Let's look at it as intended. So now you can see that there is a loop. That loop is the vertical notch. We haven't recommitted, we haven't gone cold, we've maintained our position this entire time within the z-axis, which also resides along the y-axis. Again, maintaining our notch angle at all times. There's a few reasons why you want to do this. Number one, you maintain both a defensive and an offensive posture at all times. For those that play top tier quite a bit, you're familiar with the HMD and how you can look off without changing your positioning and acquire targets and launch on them with missiles, right? When you're in this position, it's very easy to turn in temporarily, get a quick HMPD lock, and do a very high off-board launch onto your enemy, and then quickly go back into the loop and continue in your notch. Being able to ride this line of both defense and offense is a great thing to have, but one of the better things is you maintain verticality over your enemy. Now, this can do a couple things. More likely than not, your enemy is going to be multipathing. This will either bait them up from the deck thinking that you're an easy target and they will break multipath, or they'll be too tunnel vision into not hitting the tree in front of them that they're not going to maintain offense, and now they're on the defense with you above them. For those that don't know, a Fox 3 from the sky will splash any multipather on solid ground and either cripple them or kill them outright if you get the angling correctly. It's an incredible method to bait enemies up or scare them into submission. Okay, so my first example of this is going to be cross between live action footage with sensor view to kind of show you the ins and outs of what's going on. So I am looking for an Su-27 in this clip, and an Su-30 kind of shows up on my left out of nowhere. I launch on the 27 and I immediately go back to my defensive posture. That's the kind of the dance between offense and defense. I mess up my notch angle at the beginning, and then I kind of find my way into it, and you can see here how I'm in the notch angle and I actually spoof this 77 pretty quickly, and then I flare the 27 ET. I dump chaff like a madman, I find my proper angle, I go vertical into the notch, and I beat the missiles. Now, a key to the vertical notch is maintaining visual of the enemy. This is something I personally struggle with a lot. You probably see that quite a bit in the streams. I lose targets all the time. Thankfully here, though, I'm able to find them pretty quickly. Lock them up off board with the HMD like I was talking about, and we'll just finish the clip here. Next example, I'm going to be dealing with two targets, an Su-34 and an Su-30. I've got a very good altitude advantage on them already, and I've already launched two missiles. They return fire, and I immediately go into the vertical notch. I dive down, and I start my loop. Now, in sensor view, it really shows just how fast you can defeat one of these missiles. So the Su-30 launches on me, and I get the warning. Like I said, I dive down, immediately get into my notch, my vertical, and right there, boom, the missile is defeated within about 3 to 4 seconds. Now, like I said, it's very important to maintain visual of your target, and sometimes render distance is an issue. Thankfully, this guy pops on the white background as he renders in, and I go back into the defense to defeat another missile, and here he pops up right here. This is the off board that I'm talking about. Immediately launch, turn back into my defensive posture if needed. He doesn't fire anything, but I do see smoke, so I start flaring, knowing that that is an IR missile. And he's done. Something you need to keep in mind with this maneuver is it's not just a defeat missile button maneuver. It's a gray area between offense and defense. You're dancing between being able to defeat a missile and maintain position and bait a attacker up to you, and then riding that line between, okay, now I can turn in and launch a off-board missile and then immediately go back into the notch if needed. And remember, not all missiles are made the same. An AIM-120 or an AAM-4 aren't going to pull nearly as hard as something like an R-77 or a PL-12. If you fire these missiles that don't have the same G-pull and off-rail performance, and you don't allow them to have enough time to pull in on the target, they're more likely going to miss, or they're going to have a lot more time to react. Now, it is possible to use these missiles just fine. I do it all the time. It's just something you got to keep in mind when you're setting up your notches and your return fires. You got to keep in mind the plane that you're using. And on the note of distance, also another thing to keep in mind is this is more of a close range maneuver. If you're getting launched on from distance and you see the missile either through your radar or through your RWR, if it's a long-range missile, using the vertical notch is probably not necessary in this situation. Maybe draining the missile of its speed and its energy, maybe multipathing or cranking, something like that. Using the notch too early is a great way to waste chaff. Now, when you start your loop, whether you go up or down is completely dependent on your current positioning and speed. If you have a lot of speed and need to drain it quickly, going up might be a good benefit. Now, if you're too high, going down so you stay away from becoming a sitting duck at high altitude is also something to keep in mind. You're going to gain a lot of speed if you go downwards. You've got to keep in mind you have an air brake, cut throttle, stuff like that. You don't want to be going too fast during this. Maintaining a constant, stable speed is key. Having a Moz is a huge help. It tells you when you've successfully defeated a missile. You see me a lot of times using planes like the J-11B and the Eurofighter, which have a very strong Moz and allows me to further confirm the fact that, okay, I beat that missile. I know it's not going to turn back in on me. I'm going to turn back in on him and exploit this window so I can return fire and then force them defensive. But this isn't some perfect maneuver. Sometimes you are going to get caught off guard and you just need to dive down and multipath, and hopefully you can beat the missile that way. Go cold, scream for help, whatever. This isn't some instant win maneuver. And not just that, but it's also very difficult to kind of get the hang of it. Once you understand the concepts and the axes, specifically the Z, X, and Y axis in this three-dimensional space, once you understand that and it kind of clicks, then it all comes down into place and it starts to make sense. This is a bit of a learning curve, okay? So just keep that in mind. You're probably going to get killed quite a few times doing this at the beginning. Don't let that discourage you. This video is always going to be here if you need that representation for how to do it properly and how it works, like I said, in that three-dimensional, not that two-dimensional, but a three-dimensional space in which we play this game at. This is probably the strongest tool that you can have in your toolbox. And when you're going against players that actually know how to do this, it can turn into a pretty dynamic vertical notch dance that just comes down to who can get the other opponent on the defense sooner. And once you are on the defensive, you're kind of screwed. If you're stuck in that defensive posture, it's hard to get out of it. But yeah, that is all I got for this. I hope that explained the vertical notch pretty well, using the 3D models to kind of explain the verticality in a three-dimensional space. Like I said, Sin is the one that developed this and is the one who showed me by facing him and being demolished by it. So credit goes to him for developing this maneuver. Link to his channel down below in the description. And also link to my Discord down below as well if you want to hang out in a cool community. A lot of people there willing to help, especially a lot of new players too. Yeah, that's really all I got. So I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.